patent. But because you get the patent, despite the disclosure, nobody else can touch it. What happens when, say, at the end of the 5th year, you forgot to renew your patent? You forgot to pay the fees and forgot to renew the patent. What happens? People can touch. What does that mean? It means that your patent lapses. What is patent? Monopoly right. Your monopoly right, poof, no more. Invention still there, yes, people will touch. Okay? People waiting on him, right? People will come in and do what they like with invention, including being your competitor, reproducing it, selling it next to you. That is why patent owners protect their patent jealously. They would never allow it to lapse. Alright? What happens when your patent lapses? What is the remedial action that you want to take immediately? Sorry?
Renew the patent.
Quickly go and renew the patent. Lapse already, what? Where's that to renew? Delete all your patents. Huh? Delete the information. It's already filed. And later on you will see that you would have filed it in various other countries as well. Yeah. It's not an online thing. It's not something that's stored in your hard disk. It's not, you know. Alright. You have already made multiple and already commercialized and everybody can take it apart and look at it only, okay? So let's look at trademarks. If you recall, trademarks registration has, each registration lasts for 10 years. And especially if you park it under a company, you renew it just before the 10-year expires. If you remember to renew it, the trademark renewals, each renewal lasts for 10 years, it can go on indefinitely. Yeah. Now, in one of those 10 years, you forgot to renew. Okay, 1 month later you realize, oh, you expired last month. Okay, what will you do? Trademark. You will go and re-register it. It's not a renewal. Okay, you will go and re-register. Okay, re-register it. But there is a risk. What is the risk? There's a risk that you may not be able to re-register. What is that risk? Trademark. Huh? Someone has already registered a same or similar trademark in that interim, in that 1 month. Correct? So you will face some obstacles, and you say, oh, someone already registered in the same classes of goods and services. It may not be a sabotage person or something, but someone, they just are in the same business. Yeah. Now, patents. 5th year, you forgot to renew and it lapses. Okay? You can't renew something that has lapsed, but you can reapply and re-register. Okay? Is it possible in the situation of patents, it lapses in the 5th year, then you apply for reapplication? You cannot. Why? Because product not there already, invention always there. What is the first criterion you have to satisfy? New or novel? It is not new or novel. Okay? So once the patent lapses because you forgot to renew, there's no remedial action except cry also not remedial action. Okay? There's no remedial action. It lapses. So the monopoly right lapses, invention is still there. Okay? So people can use it. But none of those other people who use it has exclusive right anyway. Okay? But everyone can use it. Use doesn't mean just take one and touch and use. It means they actually make commercial use, reproduce many copies, send to the factories and sell and all this. Okay? Because you have no more monopoly right, but you have an invention that has been fully disclosed from day one. Now, that said, what are the circumstances in which a patent owner, a patent lapses, okay, before 20 years, a patent lapses in his 5th year, and the owner doesn't seem to be very perturbed. You see him there, hi day, alright day. How come? How come? Yes, what? Why?
There might be other new inventions that improve on this current invention, and so it's no one.
Actually, there are two things that you have said, but more. Your question is more towards by the 5th year, sometimes your invention is obsolete already. Okay, and who wants to maintain another 20 years? Okay, so your patent is obsolete. There's no point maintaining it. The invention is obsolete. There's no point maintaining the patent for a full 20 years. So just allow it to lapse. Sometimes your invention is made obsolete by yourself. Okay, because you are so good in that area, you have made even better inventions. It may not be improvement over the same invention, but better inventions. You will rather spend money obtaining a patent for your new inventions and maintain that, rather than maintaining an old invention's patent for 20 years. That's one. The other reason they say no value is because from day one, it has no value. There's an invention, there's a patent, but no one seems to be able to make any use of it. You can't make any use of it. No one seems to want to license it to make any use of it. After 5 years of swatting flies, you say, let me discontinue the patent. Okay. There's one other possible scenario in which the owner of the patent allows it to lapse halfway. Selling. No, when you sell your patent, you mustn't allow it to lapse. Right? Your new owner will continue with it.
Sell the patent.
And then, what happens is when you sell the patent, then in the patent registry, the name of the owner will also change. So the new owner will want to maintain, will not allow it to lapse. But here I'm saying, regardless of who the owner is, the owner actually, the owner of the register actually allow it to lapse. And he seems okay with it.
The owner is compensated for the remainder of how much they earn given the patent.
Who will do that? The owner is compensated with enough money as to the remaining term of the patent. By who? By who?
Government body.
Government body. Why would government body do that?
Encourage the use of the invention by many people.
Encourage the use of the invention by many people. Again, it's a kind of in-between answer. Sometimes the owner feels that this invention can benefit a lot of people. Okay, can benefit a lot of people. So he would rather let it lapse so that whichever manufacturer or so and so who thinks that they can mass produce this, okay, just take it, go and mass produce. The owner is charitable, doesn't really mind. Okay? This is especially true of drugs. You have a good drug, you don't want to hold on to a patent to it. Let whoever has the reach, able to reach to all these other areas, or these other people, whoever take this invention and reach the other, let them go and do it. Okay? And then he's not afraid of one company having advantage over the other because none of them will have a patent. Right? So eventually the market irons itself out. There will be to ensure the furthest reach possible of a good invention that is socially beneficial. Now, the government will not pay this patent owner money, okay, to make it socially beneficial. Okay, none of the governments are going to do that. Say, come I buy over from you. Actually, buy over is just to maintain the patent. Okay. What the government does is, I will grant you a patent on the condition that, okay, I get to manufacture this for free. Okay, for free. Otherwise, you don't get a patent. Okay. So what government does This is not part of the answer to my question. This is just an observation of fact. Is what government does is, you have a drug, you apply for a patent for it in my country. Let me make a deal for you. You want patent, huh? You want patent or not? Okay. Let me do this. I grant you a patent. At the same time, you grant me an immediate license to the patent, so that I also get to manufacture your drugs for my people. Okay? And that's why you see the proliferation of this thing called generic medicine, generic drugs, which are about the same thing, about close to the same thing. Some say equally effective, sold under a different brand name and very much cheaper. Right? And this happens in third world country governments in which they need to help their people. Right? So they cannot allow the MNC drug companies to have a patent over this drug for 20 years. Okay? And then they set the price, and then they set the amount of supply also. Okay? So that is the situation with governments, government licenses. Infringement occurs when it's the same concept. You are not the owner. You have no reason to be using the invention. If you want to use the invention, you are not the owner. You have to obtain a license. Okay. And in the event that you are caught for patent infringement and being hauled to court, of course, this is what you will be slapped with: injunction, and then damages calculated based on either account of profits or losses suffered by the patent holder. Okay, we have discussed this. All right. Now, patent pending. You do not just apply the term patent pending or the term patented just on any other objects, any products as and when you like. It has to be the truth. You have a patent over the product, you put the word patented. You have a patent applied for the product, you put the words patent pending. But you do not just put the words on them to scare other people, because that by itself is a criminal offense. Okay? How do we protect your invention overseas? When you apply for a patent in Singapore, and after 2 to 4 years, actually Singapore quite fast, 1.5 years, 1.5 years, is granted to you, your patent, your monopoly right is granted by the Singapore government. So Singapore government can only grant you this monopoly right within the boundaries of Singapore. And to obtain a patent invention in overseas or in other countries, you need the government of those countries to grant you a patent over the same invention as well. So there are two ways to go about this. You can apply for a patent in each of the other countries individually, one by one, or you can do it simultaneously through this thing called Patent Cooperation Treaty, or PCT. I'll summarize the next few slides. What the PCT does is this: at the point of time we apply for a patent, you have 12 months to consider whether you want to apply to the foreign countries via the PCT. Within that 12 months, you can go back to our ICOS, our patent office, to designate which countries you want the patent office to apply for you. And after the designation, the application for patent will be made in these foreign countries individually. And the good thing is, if you do it within 12 months, once the patents are granted in these foreign countries, the validity date of these foreign patents will also coincide, backdated to the Singapore patent date, patent grant date. Right? In trademarks, we call this priority dating. In patent, we call it a bit differently. It's called priority claims. Question: what is the benefit of priority dating and priority claims? This dating back. Again, there's no wrong answer, just any answer, and then we move on like that. What is the benefit? You waited 4 years. Then 4 years later, your patent is granted, and your patent is deemed to have existed since the day of application 4 years ago. Yes?
Earlier coverage.
Sorry?
Earlier coverage.
Yes, so you get the patent to start earlier. So this is the result, the observation about what is the benefit of that.
start using the name.
Yes. I mean, as a lawyer, this is the first thing I see. Right? So you have to wait 2 to 4 years. In the 2 to 4 years, a lot of things happen. Right? You have already give full, you have already demonstrated your invention, go and advertise, write a publication, right? Maybe already start commercializing. People will follow suit. Right? And they know that they may or may not know that you apply a patent, but things don't have a patent during the interim period. But lo and behold, your patent got granted and is deemed to have existed on a day before they start infringing. Okay? Then you can take legal action on them already after your patent is granted and backdated. Same for trademarks. Alright? Now, the last thing you need to know is that before you apply for a patent in an overseas country, you have to have written to this person or this department called Registrar of Patents to obtain the department's consent or approval for an application for a patent in a foreign country. Okay, because if you forget, if you don't, okay, it is a criminal offense again. Right? Now, most times, 99% of the times, this authorization is automatically given to you after you've applied for a patent to prevent people from forgetting. Okay, so you apply for a patent, then maybe a month or so, the registrar will write back to you and say, in case you want to apply for this is my authorization under section 54. So you don't have to specifically write to him. The only people who have to write to him for authorization is they are in a hurry, right, and they cannot wait for the registrar to voluntarily write back to them. So they have to obtain. Okay, and this written authorization from registrar to write to him, he will reply to you within a day. Alright? But always remember, because if you apply for a patent in a foreign country without this authorization, it is an offense. That is all for this sub-module. Any questions about exams in 2 weeks' time? Did I tell this class write short answers, write point form for my question? Okay, short answers, point form. Okay, please remember to use. Well, don't use pencil because many a times by the time the strip comes to the marker, some of the pencil marks are quite off. You can't quite see already. Alright, so use blue or black. Yeah, and this no need to draw diagrams. You want to draw pictures and say this is a trademark, this is not a trademark. Okay, so remember, please short answers. Okay, then less chances of making mistakes. Okay, hungry. Okay, go ahead, lunch. I see you at the examination